All right, so the next project for this Kilgore wood shop is actually we're making a custom shaped office table for my dad's office. It's more of a side table. The things in consideration is this actually is to represent 16 inches by 2 feet. And this is the space we needed to put the table on. We used grid paper to help it. And the things we had to worry about are people deciding to come walking in, because this is where they'll sit down and for office things and walking here. And so we had to make sure that this being the doorway here, they didn't ram right into that edge there. And then also there's something here we have to work around. It was originally going to be tile, so we had this squared off so it'd be easier to make cuts into tile or stone, but then we found some wood that we're going to use instead. So it's actually now going to be a solid wood table. So what I need to do now is I need to transpose this onto a life-sized 2 foot by 16-inch table, piece of wood we found, and then redraw this so that we have a life-size cutout so we can plan our cuts and everything a lot better. And then because the idea is to join the woods together and then maybe just cut this shape out with a jigsaw. And I'm getting ready to do that just now. Okay, so I recreated my grid now. However, I didn't plan it very well, and it's not easy to see the big squares versus small. So I just need to sharpen up some lines and solidify these lines, and I should be able to make this work. Right there, that looks much better. And I managed to save some wood as well. So now comes the full part of transposing that drawing right there onto this right here. All right, so a little thing in design. As we're playing with rounding off everything, and it suddenly turned kind of phallic. And so apparently you can ask if it's sharp edges, something may not look as valid compared to when it's rounded. Yeah. All right, so going back to the straight lines and edges. Okay, and now we have the final life-size table here. I keep thinking this thing's gonna be bigger than it is, but just need to be able to place a coffee cup right there, a few things around it. I outline in Sharpie now, so my outlines can't be erased and cannot be erased. And then, you know, this shows the waist area, so I can actually see the shape, because white is where the cuts are going to be, and we'll probably have to sand that down to the right shape, maybe. See how it goes. Once we figure out how to cut that out of the wood.
I'm not one to.
All right, so these are the. All right, so now we have our piece of wood we're going to use for the table, and actually with this one, we're trying to keep the saw marks on here. We think it'll look. For things will look really great, so we're going to do that. We're not really going to try and sand them down. However, to do this and get this shape here, we have to be very, very careful on how we cut this, and we have to really plan it out. So right now we have these two to mark where to join them, because if we mark this in ink, we'd sand this off. So the idea now I have is also to mark the tops and the bottoms for just right now. So here we go, top. Now, granted, these two, they won't line up if you don't, I mean, this really should be all that's needed, but still, it becomes something I would not want to even have to second guess. What?
Let's put the clamps here and we can hold it together with the clamps.
You mean for this?
Yeah.
No, we gotta, I mean, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not to worry about.
Yep.
Alright, that was marked off too. Alright, then just the top there. Two things we gotta figure out. One is these are two separate widths. So we have to trim this down to be the same thing as this. And that's going to be very tricky with our table saw. Also, we got to figure out how to join them. So that's going to be the other thing. So we're in 1 sec, and we get to that as we figure that out. All right, we're good. Go ahead.
If we have the edges, we can put dowels in, and we have a tool to do that.
All right.
Okay.
So edge doweling is one option for joining them. You're saying so?
Yeah, dowels.
And tool like there.
And the catch is the dowels have to be exactly in the same place, and we have a tool for that.
All right.
You have it's a special clamp.
All right. We do that. That's a good option. We have the dowels for that. We do have to. One con is that we have to make sure these are the exact width.
Yes.
Which can be tricky, especially with our tools. what about trying to spline joint them? You know, we could try doing a spline joint like this. We have the router table now, and you know, even if these are a little off, as long as this is accurate, you could do that. Try to do that with a long piece of wood and glue it together.
That might be more
so
stable.
that could be an option.
That might be more stable than the dowels, because it'd be a longer piece of wood holding it together.
Yeah, and it'd be quicker to get accurate. I mean, as long as these two match, it should be okay. Actually, if we do it this way, I mean, we could have, as long as the two pieces of wood are, in fact, the top is level, you could have something like this here, and still have this other piece like this.
Then I would say, I agree, if we're going to do that, we need to cut it roughly to the width we need for the table, and then do the spline joint before we cut it exactly to that.
Yeah, definitely. Wherever we do, we have to join all the boards first.
So we'll have a little room to play with.
Yes, hopefully. Another option I thought, if we come to exact width, if we take the two boards and we cut a recess into it and put a piece of wood in there, we could try screwing that wood into there as a joint.
I think,
and then we can take like a plug from one of the scrap pieces and plug up the screw, or we could do that and the spline joint.
I think the spline joint will do it, especially since we'll have pieces of wood that'll probably cross this, holding it together, the legs. You see, we'll be holding it together.
So will the legs hold together though?
Well,
because they're just straight up and down.
Yeah, but I mean, they'll be crossing these two pieces of wood that are already on the spline joint. So in other words, it'll be more support for it.
All right.
But anyway, I think this, to me, the spline joint's the way to go, or the dowels. And the spline joint is easier to line up. I mean, that dowel jig will work, but the spline joint gives us room to work with. You see what I mean? It doesn't have to be perfect.
Gotcha.
And so we've just got to cut this to the right width. And then what I would say is let's measure, you know, how much space this way.
Yep.
And then rip this.
All right.
So that we don't have to cut, you know, rip this way anything we don't have.
That's good. All right. So we're going to spline joint it. At least I believe that's called spline joining.
I think it is, but it's close enough.
Yep. All right, then we need to check the measurements, which is very easy because if these equal 16 inches across, then we can just cut a huge slab out of it, and it'll look even better. Yeah, 18 inches.
Oh, so okay.
And we need 24 inches. So yeah, we could actually, thankfully, and this will be great because we can get a much more uniform cut pattern here. Just cut a 16-inch by 2-foot solid piece out of this, and then trim that around.
I'd say let's draw a line across here, go down, what'd you say, how many feet, how many inches?
24 inches.
So go down 26 inches to give us a little room to work with a spline joint.
All right.
And then cut it across there, right?
Yep.
And I don't think we should cut this way because it's only 2 inches extra.
So, okay, so you want to keep it, we may need to trim these to make sure they're flush and smooth for joining though.
Yeah, we may
so we will need to do that, which means this may not counter up as well as we'd like if we try that.
We can live with that.
Maybe, actually, I'm beginning to think, what if we don't do the spline joint to keep this pattern? And we go back to like my idea of recessing some wood underneath and using that as the joining support. So instead of trying to use pressure to keep them together and glue, to just drilled into solid beams.
That would do
well. And we just
well.
recess them in.
You mean just use a router and cut in strips?
Yep.
Like 3
cut in some strips. And you know what? It's underneath it. It doesn't have to be as pretty.
Oh, it does not go
I think that stopped recording. Does it stop recording? No, it hasn't stopped recording. All right. So then in that case,
we just need to draw a line across.
Yep. I got the pencil. So where do you want the top to be?
Oh, anywhere there. I'm thinking of which wood.
Well, it's wherever the pattern. So you just need to pick out a. I mean the.
Well, right here is fine with me. You know what I mean? The pattern's the pattern, and
Yes. Well, do you want to have this in the creek at the top or the bottom? Do you want this? Do you want to look more like this?
I hate.
Or do you want us to try and do it from here? Because if we're doing 24 inches across or 26 inches, we can leave this out, and we cut from here.
That's fine. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but if we can leave it out, let's just leave it out.
All right.
Okay.
All right then. So we are going to do this right here.
Hold on a second. So this is 28. So we'll end up.
All right. So to properly plan this, we just got to make sure we have a level edge here, and we're just going to cut that off on the table saw real quick. So for those of you, so apparently my dad managed to outdo our two of us on a table saw. We can see how unsquare that is with a hand Japanese saw. That's interesting. So we're planning out the rest of this.
My preference. Oh, that was lined up pretty well. My preference would be to not have this perfectly matched together and maintain the pattern. Because if we trim this flush, I'm not sure what you said before, I don't think we'll get this pattern again.
Yeah, you're right, we won't. So then why don't we make this the same, try and make this as close to the same width as we can with this, and then we can put beams underneath it, like I was saying, to join this together. And then if we want to, we can use those beams underneath to do the leg. So if I can sketch this out for people real quick, what I'm thinking of. All right, so those watching, make sure my paper is where it needs to be. The idea is that instead of risking losing the pattern by gluing it up, we're going to flip it over. We'll have our two pieces here, and we'll have beams inserted here that will screw into the wood. And then if needed, we can have those legs, these are a little bigger, we can have those legs, those beams be part of the support for the legs.
Right. Yes. That's
so it's a good idea. Now
we don't have to make them flush. We don't have to make them flush.
We don't. Yeah, we don't even have to make it flush. Given the style of this wood, we can get away with a little oddity because this is obviously a rough hewn wood. We can go over a rough hewn look if we need to.
What I'm saying is, if this comes out of the wood even a couple of inches, if the leg can attach to that, but I don't know if we're. But anyway.
No, exactly. Like I said, and we can get away with that versus maybe like a nice polished shaker style table, because this is rough hewn wood. We're not going to lose this rough hewn pattern.
Right. So
we can get away with having it look a little rougher. As long as it looks planned and intentional.
Yep.
So that's our current idea. I need to sketch it out better next time. So now we just got to plan out the next cuts, and we've got to thin out this piece of wood. All right, so now we just ran through the saw, the finished running through the table saw, and my phone had died on me during the middle of that, so you didn't get to see all the fun of running it through on that blade. But as you can also see that we still have this middle piece here. So we're going to try and set up our planer and see if our planer will work and let us plane this down some. Alright, so we obviously we couldn't get the table saw part to only work but so well, and we could not get the planer to work at all. And after all that shit, the best chance we had was our belt sander with 36 grit paper. So far, we've got about that on one side. You see it? And about that far on the other side. Other side. Yep. Yeah, so basically, it's time to call it a day. I got a long drive tonight to get back home for work. Still next week.